G'day guys, I thought I'd better give you an update because it's been like I think almost 2 months since I made a video, which is just crazy. I've been super busy. December, January is the busiest time for me with my casual day job that I have, and I get most of my shifts during the Christmas school holiday, so I kind of have to take advantage of that when I can, because it's pretty much the only time of year where I can make some decent money and put some more savings into my bus fund. So I've basically been working pretty much almost every day in January doing that. And on top of that, the weather's just been atrocious here in southeast Queensland. It's like stinking hot and humid every day. It's just horrible weather and not at all conducive to being outside working in the bus. So don't have any actual physical progress in the bus to show you, but I wanted to catch you up on what my plans are for the next few months with the bus, because although I haven't been working on it, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what the next steps are, what else I need to build to finish it off, and what other changes I need to make. So, and there's going to be quite a few changes coming up this year, so I thought I'd better give you guys an update and let you all know where I'm at. And yes, as you can see, I shaved all my hair off again. I grew it to about shoulder length, and I remembered all the reasons I hate having hair. So I shaved it all off again, and I think I'm going to keep it this way for a while yet. So just before Christmas, I took the bus to get weighed because it had been a year since I last weighed the bus, and obviously I've built a lot into it in that time. And because at the end of last year, the bus build was pretty much almost finished, I really only had like the bits of trim and the painting and a few finishing off bits and pieces to do, and that was it. So I wanted to get it weighed just to get a sense of where I was up to and to see how much weight I'd have left over for actually loading my gear into the bus. I was actually a bit nervous to see what the bus actually weighed because I've built a lot into it, and although I'm doing my best to use lightweight timber and thin ply in order to keep the weight down, obviously at the end of the day my build is all still 100% timber pretty much, and that does weigh more than if I was using something like aluminium and other things like that. So not only had I built a lot more furniture and cabinetry and storage into the bus, but I'd also installed roof racks. I've got 3 massive solar panels on the roof. They weigh about 20 kilos each, and I also installed a whole bunch of electrical gear, including 3 batteries which weigh almost 30 kilos each, and my inverter and all that electrical gear adds up to a fair bit. And on top of that, I'd put in a full-size fridge and a washing machine and a whole bunch of other things. So I was getting to the point where I was actually a little bit nervous that it was going to be too heavy. I was expecting it to be around about 4 tonne, so 4,000 kilos. I was hoping it would be less than that, but I was kind of expecting it to be 4,000 kilos. And when I had it weighed, it turned out to be a little bit heavier than what I had hoped. She actually came in at 4,200 kilos, so about 200 kilos more than what I was kind of expecting, which was disappointing. But you know, at the end of the day, I have built a lot into this bus and it was never going to be super lightweight. So 4,200 kilos is what the bus currently weighs. Now, I didn't have any water in my water tanks, and I wasn't on board the bus at the time that it got weighed. It was complete, like the storage cabinets and everything were completely empty. If both Pepper and I were on board and all of my water tanks were full, I would need to add almost another 300 kilos to that, which would mean that the bus would be 4.5 tonne, so 4,500 kilos. Now, my GVM, which is the maximum weight that my bus can weigh when it's fully loaded, is 4,990 kilos. So with full water tanks and Pepper and I on board, that leaves us with 490 kilos for all our food and clothing and other stuff, which sounds like a lot, but things do add up. But if I was only putting in like the normal clothing and food and house stuff that I need for living in the bus, I think we'd be perfectly fine. My problem is that's not all I want to fit into this bus, because as you know, I'm hoping to take my handmade business on the road with me when I move into the bus, and I need to carry a lot of gear for that. Like, I make handmade books, so I need to carry a lot of paper and board. I've got some big tools like a big guillotine and a binding machine, my sewing machine, my printer, all of this stuff that I need to make my books and run my business, I want to take with me on the road. And my best estimates for all of that, when I've kind of taken the time to weigh everything in my studio, I think I'm going to need at least 300 or 400 kilos just for the studio stuff. Now, obviously, I can't put that in the bus the way things are at the moment. I just don't have enough weight allowance. The bus would be way overweight and I'd be in big trouble if I got pulled over. So I'm not going to do that. So I have a couple of options, and my original plan with this bus was always to get a trailer for my studio, and I was going to have a fully set up studio on the trailer. All of my gear was going to be in there, and that was always my original plan. You know, the problem is that was the plan that I had in mind when I first bought the bus a few years ago. Since then, I've done a little bit of traveling in the bus. I've driven it a fair bit now, and I've just decided I don't actually really want to tow a trailer. The bus, you know, is already 7 meters long, and while I can't fit into an ordinary car park, most places I can kind of adapt and find somewhere relatively easy to park the bus. But as soon as I add a trailer onto that, you know, that's going to add an extra 4 or 5 meters onto my length. I'm now going to be as long as like a full-size city council bus. That's a whole other different story in terms of where you can park, how easy it is to get around towns and things. And the more I think about it, the more I think I just don't really want the hassle of towing a trailer. When it comes down to it, this whole idea of bus life for me comes down to freedom. You know, I want the freedom to be able to live life the way I choose, to be able to travel and not be stuck in one place. And I'm already restricted in some sense because of the size of my bus, but also because I have the dog. You know, I can't go into national parks. There are places where I'm not going to be able to visit because I can't take my dog in with me. So I'm already restricted a little bit for those reasons. And I just feel like if I add a trailer, I'm restricting myself even more and limiting even more the places where I can go. Not to mention the added costs that come with having a trailer. You know, you've got extra rego, extra insurance, extra tyres and maintenance on the trailer, and the cost of the trailer up front is pretty significant as well, especially for the size trailer that I would need to have a studio, all my studio gear in there, and for it to be properly set up. You know, I don't think I would get much change out of 7, 8, 10 grand even, and that's a lot of money. It's also money that I don't actually have at the moment, so I really don't want to do that. So the question comes down to, how on earth am I going to fit my entire studio into the bus if I'm not towing a trailer? Pretty much the only way I'm going to be able to carry my studio gear in the bus is if I can somehow increase the GVM, so increase the amount of weight that I'm allowed to carry on the bus. So that's what I've been looking into for the last 1 or 2 months, and it's a bit of a minefield, to be honest. There are a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to modifying the vehicle GVM, and a Toyota Coaster bus is a heavy vehicle, so the rules for heavy vehicles are different again to the rules for ordinary cars. So it's a little bit more complicated. The other thing which makes it extremely complicated is that it seems like no two inspectors interpret the rules in the same way. So just before Christmas, I went onto the Queensland Transport website, and they have a list of approved inspectors that are able to certify different modifications to vehicles. So I went through that list and made a note of all the inspectors in my area in southeast Queensland that were approved to certify GVM upgrades, and I sent them all an email basically saying, you know, I've got this Toyota Coaster motorhome, I want to increase the GVM. Is it possible? And if so, what do I have to do? And they all had different answers, ranging from no, it's absolutely not possible, that you're stuck with the factory GVM, you can't upgrade it at all in that bus, to a whole bunch of variations as to, yep, sure, I can increase it by this much if you do this, or this much if you do. It was just crazy. Like, for supposedly one set of rules that exist in the transport department, all of these guys had different interpretations or probably different understandings of what was actually legal. But anyway, I managed to find an inspector here in Brisbane who does sound like he actually knows what he's talking about. He even supplied me with a copy of the regulations around this from the National Heavy Vehicle Registry Board, which is like you know, what oversees heavy vehicles in most states in Australia now, and that's the system that my bus is actually registered under. And so he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He knows what's legal and what's not. And he has said that he can approve a GVM increase for my bus up to 5.4 tonne. So basically giving me an extra 400 kilos on top of what I have now. And the only requirement that he has for me to be able to do that is if I upgrade the suspension by putting airbags on the, like I have rear spring suspension in my bus. If I get airbag assist installed on the suspension, then he'd be happy with that, and that's enough to allow him to certify the GVM increase. So, I mean, it's not a huge increase. It's an extra 400 kilos. So I would still have to be very careful about what I actually put in the bus, you know, because it's still going to be pretty tight. But I think it does actually give me enough to give me what I need to be able to carry the studio gear on board and not need to tow a trailer. So I'm going to go ahead with this and do my best to make it work, because if I can carry everything without having to tow a trailer, I would be very happy. So I have my bus booked in to the mechanic who's going to install the airbags on the suspension. That's booked in for the 20th of February, which is just a couple of weeks away. The mechanic has quoted me $1,500 to supply and fit the airbags, and the engineer has quoted me $330 to do all of the certification. So it looks like I'm going to be able to increase the GVM for less than $2,000, which is way cheaper than what a trailer would have cost me. So fingers crossed it all goes to plan. I'm trying not to count my chickens until I actually have that paperwork, because you know, as I said, I spoke to so many different people and got so many different answers, and you know, in the back of my mind I'm always worried that this inspector's going to change his mind or retire or something. I don't know. I really need this to work out, so I'm trying not to count my chickens. But yeah, hopefully by the end of this month the bus will have a 5.4 tonne GVM, and I will be able to put everything in it. So that's where I'm at. I'm not going to be doing too much on the bus now before it goes into the mechanic. I'm just going to wait to have that done, hopefully get everything signed off. And once I know it's all official, then I can get back to building in the bus and finishing it off. And if I'm going to be carrying all my studio gear in the bus as well as house stuff, then there's a few modifications that I want to make to what I've built in here. But of course, doing all of those things is pointless if I don't get my GVM increase. So I'm just putting everything on hold until hopefully the end of this month, when all of this will be sorted, and then I'll be able to give you guys another update to let you know all the things I'm going to be modifying in the build. So stay tuned for that.